Free will is a lie you've been telling yourself, not because you're powerless, not because everything is predetermined, but because the question itself is a trap. 3,000 years before Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," Egyptian mystery schools were teaching something far more dangerous. The thinker is a fiction, the I is a mirage, and the choice you believe you're making was never yours to begin with. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up. Studies show your brain decides 7 seconds before you're conscious of deciding. Your free will is just a story your mind tells after the fact. Quantum physicists say the universe is deterministic chaos. Every particle follows laws. Every action has a prior cause stretching back to the Big Bang. But here's what neither science nor philosophy can explain. If there's no chooser, who's reading these words right now? If everything is predetermined, why does it feel like you're deciding whether to keep listening? Thoth didn't write about free will in the Emerald Tablets. He wrote about something that makes the entire debate irrelevant. He called it the witness, the part of you that watches thoughts arise without creating them, the part that experiences choice without being the chooser. And when you recognize this witness, everything changes, not because you gain control, but because you realize you never needed it. Let me tell you about a moment that happened in Alexandria, 250 BCE. A Greek philosopher walked into an Egyptian temple carrying a question that tormented him. Do the gods control our fate, or do we forge our own destiny? The priest didn't answer. Instead, he led the philosopher to a room with a single candle. "Blow it out," the priest said. The philosopher blew. The flame died. "Did you choose to extinguish it?" the priest asked. "Of course." "Did you choose to have lungs that could blow?" "No, I was born with them." "Did you choose to desire to obey my instruction?" Silence. "Did you choose the thought that arose, I should blow out this candle?" More silence. The priest smiled. The flame went out. Action occurred. But where was the chooser? This wasn't philosophy. This was direct observation. This was what Thoth called seeing through the veil of self. Let's start with what Thoth actually taught. In the Hermetic tradition, humans operate on 3 levels simultaneously. The first level, Khat, the physical body. This level is pure biology. Your neurons fire based on chemistry. Your heart beats without permission. Your cells divide following genetic code written before you were born. At this level, there is no free will, only mechanism, only causation, only the dance of atoms following laws older than stars. The second level, Ka, the life force, the personality, the ego. This is the part that says, I want this and I hate that, and I'm making this decision. Ka believes it's in control. It narrates your life as if you're the author. But Thoth knew something most people never discover. Ka is not choosing. Ka is reacting to patterns laid down by memory, trauma, conditioning, and survival instinct. When you say, I decided to eat that pizza, what really happened? Your blood sugar dropped. Your brain detected it. A craving arose. Memories of pizza linked to dopamine rewards activated. Before you were conscious of any decision, your hand was already reaching for your phone to order. The choice came after. Your mind constructed a narrative. I wanted pizza, so I chose it. But did you? Or did chemistry choose and ego claimed credit? The third level, BR, pure awareness, the witness. This is what you actually are. BR doesn't choose anything. BR doesn't need to. BR simply observes the entire mechanism, body and ego operating automatically. And here's the secret that changes everything. When you stop identifying with Khat or Ka, when you recognize yourself as Ba, the question of free will becomes meaningless, because Ba was never bound. Ba was never limited. Ba was always free, not because it can choose, but because it was never trapped in the first place. Now here's where it gets interesting. Modern neuroscience has discovered something they can't quite explain. There's a gap, a tiny space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." But Thoth would say Frankl got it backwards. It's not that you have power in that space. It's that in that space there is no you at all. That gap is pure consciousness, untouched by memory. untouched by conditioning, untouched by the illusion of self. And when you rest in that gap, action happens. Perfect action, right action. But there's no doer. The Taoists called it Wu Wei, action without actor, doing without doer. Thoth called it moving with Ma'at, moving with cosmic order, with truth, with the natural flow of reality. And here's what's wild. When you stop trying to choose, when you stop trying to control, when you simply allow that gap to be, better decisions emerge. More effective action happens. Life flows. Not because you're passive, but because you're no longer interfering with intelligence that's vaster than ego. Let me give you a modern example. There's a jazz musician on stage, improvising, no sheet music, no plan. Someone asks her afterwards, "How did you know what notes to play?" She says, "I didn't know. My fingers knew." Is that free will or determinism? Neither. It's something else entirely. Years of practice wired neural pathways. Muscle memory, pattern recognition. When she's truly in flow, the thinking mind shuts off. The chooser disappears. And that's when genius happens. The music plays itself through her. She's not controlling it. She's not being controlled. She's the space through which creation flows. Thoth taught that this is your natural state, not the exception, the rule. You're meant to be an instrument of consciousness, not a controller trying to micromanage reality. But the ego can't stand this. The ego needs to believe it's in charge, because if it's not in charge, what's its purpose? And that's the crisis. That's the terror. That's why people avoid this recognition. Because if you're not the doer, who are you? Let's talk about addiction for a moment. Modern psychology says addiction is a disease. Neuroscience says it's hijacked reward circuits. 12-step programs say it's a spiritual malady requiring surrender to a higher power. Thoth would say, addiction is what happens when Ka, the ego, the personality, tries to fill a void that only Ba can satisfy. The addict keeps choosing the substance, over and over, even when it destroys their life. Do they have free will? Are they choosing? On one level, yes, the action happens. The hand reaches for the bottle, the pipe, the pill. But on another level, no. There's a compulsion, a force, a pattern stronger than conscious choice. So which is it? Thoth would say, both and neither. The ego is trapped in a pattern. The body is enslaved by chemistry. But Ba, the witness, is completely free. The path to recovery isn't about gaining free will. It's about recognizing you were never the one enslaved. The body was enslaved. The ego was trapped. But you, the awareness watching all of it, were always free. And when the addict recognizes this, something shifts. Not because they gain control, but because they stop identifying with the part that was never in control. Here's what the Emerald Tablets say, translated from the original Coptic. The wise man knows he does nothing. The fool believes he does everything. The master allows all things to be done through him. Read that again. The master doesn't do anything, but action happens through him. Perfect action, aligned action, right action. How? By getting out of the way. By recognizing the ego's attempt to control is the only thing blocking the flow. Think about breathing. Right now, you're breathing. But are you doing it, or is it being done? If you try to control your breath, you can, for a while. But eventually you'll forget. You'll get distracted, and the body will breathe itself. The body knows. It's connected to intelligence far older and wiser than your thinking mind. Thoth taught that all of life is like this. Your heart knows when to beat. Your cells know when to divide. Your gut knows what food will nourish you. But the ego doesn't trust. The ego wants control. The ego wants to be the author. And that wanting, that grasping, that's what creates suffering. Not the lack of free will, but the belief that you need it. Now let's go deeper. Thoth taught about the law of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Free will and determinism are poles, opposites, but they're two sides of the same coin. And what's the coin itself? Consciousness. When you're identified with ego, you swing between these poles. Sometimes you feel powerful. I can do anything. I create my reality. Sometimes you feel helpless. Nothing I do matters. It's all predetermined. Both are illusions. The truth is neither. The truth is both. The truth is beyond both. Consciousness isn't free or determined, it simply is. And when you rest as consciousness, when you recognize yourself as the space in which both poles appear, you transcend the game. Let me tell you what happened to me when I first understood this. I was sitting in meditation, nothing special, just watching thoughts arise and pass, and then I noticed something. A thought appeared. I should check my phone. And I watched that thought. I didn't act on it. I didn't suppress it. I just watched it. And then I noticed I didn't choose that thought. It just appeared, like a cloud drifting through the sky of awareness. Then another thought. This is stupid. Meditation is boring. Again, I didn't choose it. It arose on its own. Then a feeling of restlessness, an urge to stand up, to do something, anything. And I realized none of this is me. These are just phenomena, arising and passing, like waves on an ocean. And if I'm not the thought and if I'm not the urges, then who am I? I'm the ocean, the space, the awareness in which all of this appears. And that awareness, it's not choosing anything. It's just here, vast, infinite, untouched by any of the drama. That moment changed everything, not because I gained free will, but because I realized I was never the one who needed it. Thoth taught that humans live in 3 states. The first state, sleep. Most people live here. They believe they're choosing, but they're just reacting. Pattern after pattern, habit after habit, completely unconscious. The second state, seeking. The person wakes up enough to realize they're not in control. They see the patterns. They see the conditioning, and they panic. This is where most spiritual seekers get stuck. They try to gain control. They try to develop willpower. They try to manifest their reality. But this is still ego, still the belief that I need to be in charge. The third state, recognition. The person sees through the ego entirely. They realize there never was a separate self, never was a chooser, never was anyone who needed to be in control. And paradoxically, this is when life becomes effortless. This is when right action flows naturally. This is when everything aligns, not because you're controlling it, but because you stopped blocking it. Here's a practice Thoth gave to initiates. For the next 3 days, watch your mind like you're watching a movie. Don't try to change anything. Don't try to control thoughts. Don't try to be more conscious. Just watch. Watch thoughts arise. Watch urges arise. Watch emotions arise. And notice, did you choose any of them? Or did they just appear? Watch yourself make decisions. Did you decide to be hungry? Did you decide what foods sound good? Did you decide to feel tired? Did you decide to think about that person? Just watch, with curiosity, with gentleness. And in the watching, notice something. There's a space, a gap, a silence, between each thought, between each sensation, between each choice. That gap is you, the real you, the witness, pure awareness. And that awareness, it's not bound by free will or determinism. It's not bound by anything. It simply is. And when you rest as that, even for a moment, you'll understand what Thoth was pointing to, not with your mind, but with direct recognition. Let me address the elephant in the room. If there's no free will, why try? Why meditate? Why work on yourself? Why do anything? Thoth would say, that question comes from ego, from the belief that there's a separate you who needs to improve, who needs to achieve, who needs to become enlightened. But here's the secret. You're already whole. You're already free. You always were. The trying is what keeps you trapped. The seeking is what perpetuates the illusion of separation. So what do? Nothing and everything. You don't try to gain free will. You recognize you never needed it. You don't try to accept determinism. You see through the one who would need to accept anything. You simply rest, as awareness, as the witness, as and from that resting, action happens. Not forced, not contrived, but natural, spontaneous, aligned. This is what Thoth called living in ma'at, living in truth, living in harmony with the way things actually are, not the way you think they should be, not the way your ego wants them to be, but the way they actually are. Here's the final teaching. Thoth said, The greatest illusion is not that you lack power, it's that you believe you are the one who needs power. Read that slowly. You're not powerless. That's not the teaching. The teaching is, there is no you separate from the totality of existence who could be powerful or powerless. There's just consciousness, expressing itself through this particular form, this particular body, this particular pattern of thoughts and memories and conditioning. And when you recognize yourself as that consciousness, not as the form but as the formless, then the question of free will becomes absurd. Because you're not a separate entity trying to control a hostile universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself, through this temporary focal point called you, and the universe doesn't need free will. It simply moves, creates, destroys, transforms, all of it perfect, all of it necessary, all of it exactly as it should be. So let me ask you directly, right now, are you choosing to read these words or are they being read? Are you choosing to understand, or is understanding happening? Are you choosing the next breath, or is it breathing itself? Don't answer with your mind. Just notice. Notice the space between the question and the thought that tries to answer it. That space is freedom. Not the freedom to choose, but freedom from the need to choose. That space is you, not the person, not the story, not the ego. The awareness that was here before any thought of free will or determinism arose. The awareness that will be here when all concepts fade. The awareness that is here right now, reading these words, without needing to decide whether to keep reading or not. That awareness is what Thoth called immortal, unchanging, eternal, not because it lasts forever in time, but because it was never in time to begin with. Here's your 7-day practice. Every time you notice yourself trying to control something, stop, take 3 deep breaths, and ask silently, who is trying to control? Don't answer. Just let the question sit, and watch what happens when you release, when you allow, when you trust. Thoth didn't teach philosophy, he taught recognition, and recognition doesn't come from understanding, it comes from seeing. Are you ready to see?